Marcus Sterling stood on the 42nd floor of his office building in Manhattan, a vodka martini in hand, watching the city sprawl beneath him like a kingdom he owned. At 42 years old, he had everything money could buy: a penthouse apartment, a yacht docked in Miami, a string of failed marriages that never touched his wealth. But there was one thing that eluded him: genuine companionship that didn't revolve around his bank account. His business partner and childhood friend, Derek, sat across from him that evening, nursing his own drink. Derek had invited Marcus to his exclusive poker game with the city's elitiers, investment bankers, and old money aristocrats. Around the mahogany table, the conversation inevitably turned to relationships. "You know what your problem is?" Derek said with a smirk. "You only that woman who are interested in your money. You've never challenged yourself." Marcus laughed coldly. "And what does that have to do with you?" "I'm saying you don't have the guts to marry someone genuinely unattainable by your standards. Someone who isn't impressed by your net worth." One of the other men at the table leaned forward. "What are you proposing, Derek?" "Simple," Derek said, his eyes locking on Marcus. "I bet you $5 million you can marry someone completely outside your usual circle. Someone you normally never look twice at." Marcus set down his drink slowly. $5 million meant nothing to him, but the challenge stirred something primal in his chest. The other men at the table watched, knowing they were witnessing a moment that would become legendary in their world. "Define marry," Marcus said carefully. "Real marriage. Legal documents. At least 1 year. And when we check up on you, which we will, she has to genuinely believe you love her. No gold digger who is in on the scheme. Someone real." Marcus felt a familiar rush of competition flood his veins. He was used to winning. He was used to bending the world to his will. "This should be simple." "You are," he said, shaking Derek's hand across the table. What Marcus didn't know, as he made that bet in a room full of intoxicated millionaires, was that he had just made a deal with the devil. And the devil was wearing a $3,000 suit. The search began immediately. Marcus hired a discreet private investigator to find the perfect candidate, someone unattainable, someone who had no connection to his world, someone who would be completely blindsided by his attention. He wanted someone who embodied everything his world had taught him to overlook. After 3 weeks of research, the investigator brought him a photograph of Sarah Chen. She was a 40-year-old woman who worked as an insurance claims adjuster in Queens. She lived in a modest apartment. She had no significant social media presence. She was kind to everyone around her, according to the investigator's report. And she was severely obese. Marcus stared at the photograph for a long time. She wasn't what he expected. There was something in her face that unsettled him. But she was perfect for the bet. No one would ever believe he'd marry her for anything other than appearance. It would be a masterclass in manipulation. Sarah Chen had worked at the same insurance company for 15 years. She came in early, left late, and took pride in her work. Her life was quiet, predictable, and if she was honest with herself, lonely. She'd long ago made peace with the fact that romance was something other people experienced, something that didn't seem to be in the cards for her. That's why when Marcus Sterling walked into her office on a Monday morning in September, she thought there was some mistake. He was immaculate. His suit probably cost more than her monthly rent. His smile was practiced but effective. He told her he'd been in a car accident, and her company had processed his claim, and he'd been so impressed by her thoroughness that he wanted to take her to dinner to thank her. Sarah laughed nervously. "Mr. Sterling, I was just doing my job." "Please," he said, and there was something in his eyes, a particular intensity that made her believe, just for a moment, that he meant it. One dinner, she should have said no. Every instinct should have told her this was dangerous, that a man like this didn't notice women like her, but she said yes. Their first dinner was at an upscale restaurant in Manhattan. Marcus was charming, attentive, and somehow made Sarah feel like she was the most interesting person he'd ever met. He asked about her life, her dreams, her childhood. He really listened in a way that made her feel seen. By the time dessert arrived, Sarah had almost convinced herself that this might be real. Over the following weeks, Marcus orchestrated their relationship with the precision of a business acquisition. He introduced her to his world gradually, first coffee dates, then dinners, then weekends away. He never pressured her. He was patient. He was kind. Sarah fell for him slowly and then all at once. Her friends were skeptical. Her sister Maria, who lived in New Jersey, was particularly concerned. This doesn't make sense, Maria said over lunch one Saturday. Men like they can't go for women like us. What does she want? He wants me, Sarah said quietly, and she almost believed it. 3 months into their relationship, Marcus proposed. It was at sunset from the top of the Empire State Building. It was romantic and cinematic and exactly something a man like him would orchestrate. Sarah said yes through tears, still not quite believing this was happening to her. They married in a small ceremony at City Hall, with Derek present as a witness. Marcus held her hand throughout, and in that moment, looking into his eyes, Sarah thought she'd found her happily ever after. Derek smiled knowingly from across the room. The bet was nearly won. The first 6 months of marriage were surprisingly good. Marcus had insisted they live in his penthouse, and while Sarah felt constantly out of place among the minimalist furniture and modern art, she tried. She cooked dinner for him. She organized his social calendar. She tried to become the kind of woman who belonged in his world. But something shifted around month 7. Marcus started traveling for work more frequently, leaving Sarah alone in the vast apartment for days at a time. When he was home, he was different, distant, cold. He'd come back from his poker games with Derek and other men, and Sarah would hear them laughing in the study, the sound of clinking glasses and low voices. One night, Sarah called in to sleep. She wandered the apartment at Dois Amazonas and found Marcus's laptop open on the kitchen counter. A text message notification glowed on the screen from Derek. How much longer can you keep this up? You've already won $6 million with the interest. Just end it. Sarah's hands went numb as she read the message thread. There were photographs, surveillance photos of her that waiting to from Marcus. There was a contract, dated before they even met, outlining the terms of the bet in explicit detail. There were jokes about her appearance, about how long he could stomach being married to her. The words blurred as tears filled her eyes. It was all a lie, all of it. Every kiss, every kind word, every promise manufactured. She was a pawn and a game between wealthy men, a bet to prove Marcus Sterling could manipulate anyone, even someone as invisible as her. When Marcus came home that morning, he found Sarah sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop in front of her. For a moment, his face went blank. Then he did something that terrified her more than anger would have. He laughed. So you figured it out, he said, pouring himself a drink at Seis Amazonas. I was wondering when you would. How could you? Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper. Why would you do this? Why? Because I could, Marcus said coldly. Because men like me do things like this every day. We take what we want, we manipulate situations, we win. That's what we do. You married me under false pretenses. That's fraud, Marcus. That's nothing, he interrupted. You think anyone will believe you? You think you have the resources to fight me in court? I have lawyers who eat cases like this for breakfast. You ain't nothing, Sarah. You always were. The only difference is now you know it. Sarah felt something break inside her, not her heart, which had already been shattered, but something deeper. A part of her that believed in goodness, in fairness, in the possibility that someone could love her. She went to her room because she didn't think of it as their room anymore and began to pack. She called her sister Maria, her voice steady despite the devastation coursing through her. I'm leaving him, she said. Sarah, wait. Get a lawyer first. You have rights, no, Sarah said quietly. I'm leaving him, but not the way you think. What Marcus didn't know is that Sarah wasn't the ordinary. What no one in his world knew was that Sarah Chen had a different kind of power entirely. 3 days after discovering the truth about their marriage, Sarah made an appointment with a journalist at the New York Times. She brought everything: the messages, the surveillance photos, the contract, copies of the bet, names of every man involved. She gave detailed accounts of every conversation, every manipulation, every moment of calculated cruelty. But it wasn't all. Sarah had been keeping her own insurance policy. She had every conversation with Marcus recorded on a voice-activated device hidden in the apartment. She had footage of Emma and Derek discussing the bet in graphic detail. She had documented everything. The article ran 3 days later. Manhattan elite se cruel bet on love. How billionaires gambled with a woman's life. Within hours, it went viral. The screenshots were everywhere. The audio clips were trending on every platform. The story of Marcus Sterling's calculated cruelty became the defining narrative of his life. But the media storm was only the beginning. Sarah's lawyer, a brilliant woman named Jennifer, whose grandmother had also been treated like an afterthought in her own marriage, took the case pro bono. She filed for divorce on grounds of fraud, emotional abuse, and conspiracy. She subpoenaed Derek and the other men at the poker game. She demanded full financial disclosure. As the investigation deepened, something darker emerged. The private investigator Marcus had hired to find Sarah had done more than just research her background. He had tampered with her employment records, making it appear she'd been fired from her job. He leaked intimate photographs of her to social media accounts designed to humiliate her. The bet wasn't just about winning money, it was about destroying her. The criminal charges came next: fraud, defamation, harassment, conspiracy. Derek was arrested at his office. The other men at the poker game found themselves under investigation. Marcus, facing mounting legal pressure and the complete implosion of his reputation, tried to flee to the Cayman Islands. He was stopped at the airport. What Sarah had calculated, what Marcus never considered, was that invisible people notice things. Quiet people listen. And someone who has been overlooked their entire life learns how to protect themselves in ways powerful people never anticipate. As Marcus was led away by federal agents, as his empire began to crumble under the weight of investigations and lawsuits, he finally looked at Sarah with something other than contempt in his eyes. He looked at her with fear, because he finally understood the person he thought was his victim had been his downfall all along. Sarah didn't celebrate, she didn't gloat. Instead, she did what she'd always done. She moved on quietly. The settlement for Marcus's legal team was substantial enough to set her up for life. But more than that, she got something he could never understand: her dignity back, earned through her own strength. She never remarried. She never really dated again. Instead, she started a non-profit organization that helped women in abusive relationships cope and rebuild their lives. She became invisible again by choice, working behind the scenes, helping others find the same power she'd discovered. Years later, when people would ask Sarah how she knew what to do, how she managed to take down someone as powerful as Marcus Sterling, she would simply smile and say, "Because he'd been invisible my whole life. I knew exactly how to disappear, and I knew that disappearing doesn't mean you're powerless. Sometimes it means you can see everything they can't." The men at the poker table learned a lesson that night that none of their money could have taught them. Never underestimate the person you think is beneath you. Never assume that quietness means weakness. And never, ever mistake visibility for power. So there you have it, the story of a bet that was supposed to be simple, but became the downfall of one man as the entire world. Sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones we overlooked, the ones we think don't matter. What did you think of Sarah's story? Where are you watching from today? Drop a comment down below and let us know. And if you were craving more twisted tales like this one, stories where the truth is darker than you could ever imagine, then you need to subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, so you never miss another mind-bending story. Trust us, you won't want to miss what is coming next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next twisted tale. Good night.